Hi, it's Chris with Implied Music. I think counterpoint gets a bad rap, and it's because just the word counterpoint is just a little off-putting, right? But it can really help enliven our chord progressions. A little bit of counterpoint goes a long way. Well, I'll confess to being a counterpoint junkie. There's really essentially two kinds of sort of harmony that we use when we compose. There's homophonic form, where a melody line is harmonized by chords. And then there's the kind that's called polyphony, which was practiced for hundreds of years and reached its like sort of biggest expression with Bach and Handel and those cats in like the 17th century. That's called polyphony. And counterpoint is kind of a version of that. I play some chorales, Bach chorales every day. And here you can see, a snippet of, let's see, is that 1, 2, 3, let's say call it 4 measures. There's a little pickup beat of music. Well, this is what it sounds like. And it's an example of polyphony. Each voice has kind of an independent world. It's actually easy to hear chords in there, though. For instance, that was definitely D minor at the end of that phrase, right? Polyphony, as it was practiced, kind of gave rise to chords. And each individual voice kind of adds up to be a chord. Now, when you teach counterpoint in, say, college, there's this thing called species counterpoint. And you've probably, if you've done any research on it, heard the expression. It comes from this guy named Fuchs, Johann Fuchs's book, Gradus ad Parnassum, Steps to Parnassus. Parnassus is a mountain in Greece that is supposedly sacred to Apollo and the home of the Muses. Steps to Parnassus. We're going to ascend the mighty mountain and get to the top. Well, let's ascend the mighty mountain and get to the top. First species counterpoint is you just like have a simple melody. They call it the kind of the basic melody. All these terms are in Latin, by the way. We're just going to spare you the Latin terms. So I've picked this little melody here, very simple, basic melody. Cantus firmus, there I said it. Up, down. Rules for melody include one high point, and especially in first species counterpoint, we want to come back home again to 1. And that was the key of F, and we just went up and down. And I've written out a version of that. Here it comes. The 1 chord and the 5 chord. You heard it, back to the 1 chord. So basically what I'm trying to do here is harmonize this with 1, 4, and 5 this first time through, just so we know. So we went 1, 5, 1, 5. Let's go on. And as we go on, we'll get to the 4 chord. Here it comes. 4, 1, 5, 1. And honestly, that might be what you would do if you were strumming on guitar, isn't it? But, in modern music, we really like to use other chords as well. So here we're going to add the 6, and did I add the 3? I don't know. Let's see. F major to C. Oh, here's the D minor, 6 so far. So I wanted to borrow some chords, so I borrowed from the F minor scale. This is the flat 7 chord, E flat. It's epic sounding, isn't it? I love that major chord there. Here it is. These are simple triads voiced smoothly using the rule of parsimony. That's a diminished chord. We've talked about them. And then back down again. Okay, this one we should analyze a little bit because we're going to go deep on these chords. We're going to create little things that sound like counterpoint that really come out of simple tricks. All right, the F chord is followed by the C chord. That's 1, 5. and then 6. So far, I'm basically on the, like, I'm writing a pop song. And of course, the next chord should be B flat, the 4 chord. But instead, I've gone to E flat major, which is kind of stunning and fun, over G in this case. But nevertheless, I like that. It's a good progression. F, C, D minor, E flat. It sounds kind of 60s in a way, doesn't it? That flat 7 chord, sort of mixolydian. That's this chord here. Now, the highest point in the melody is that note right there, and it's nice to have a striking chord on that. So what I've harmonized it with is essentially a diminished chord. We were talking about how diminished chords are like dominant chords. They have tritones and they're passing chords, right? This beautiful sound. Of course, it functions like a dominant chord, so it goes to either F or D minor. And I went to D minor. My next chord is D minor, harmonizing the A. And from there, we're just going to head home, right? There's the D minor chord, the 6 chord. The 5 chord goes to 1. There's a moment of tension and excitement at that high point in the melody, harmonically and also, you know, melodically. Very stable, really predictable, surprise chord, tension, a deceptive cadence to D minor, 5, 1. My student brings that into me and I say, nice work, Zach. Really cool. All right, I've taken it one step further and I've done 2 things that we've talked about doing before. First of all, I grabbed the second voice from the bottom and flipped it down an octave. That's those notes there. And suddenly, exactly the same harmony, exactly the same notes, turns from being closed voicing to an open voicing. Now, I give this to the string orchestra and it sounds awesome. To make it sound even more awesome, we add roots. Here we go, full. It's exactly the same thing that we just heard, but it's broader, much more majestic. But it's still a little blocky, isn't it? It doesn't have a lot of rhythmic motion. So first species counterpoint is essentially this kind of thing where all the notes are exactly at the same time, and there's rules about how they move to each other, but basically, I think for modern composers, you just want to make sure things move smoothly and you get from voice to voice in a way that doesn't kill you. Second species counterpoint is twice as many notes in the counterpoint voice as in the cantus firmus, as in the melody. And I've only done this in one voice here, and you can see it. I mean, I just took my scissors tool and I chopped up that middle voice that I flipped down, and I gave it a little wiggle. I went down and up, in the scale mostly. Suddenly much more interesting. Some suspensions. And it moves forward. Suspension. And honestly, that would loop beautifully. Let's look again. I let myself go F sus to F at the beginning. And then when I go to the 5 chord, there's the G, which was there originally, but now it travels up and up. So this inner voice here, if you look at it, has an elegant, sinuous quality, which actually stitches things together in a great way. We've actually created like twice as many chords because of those suspensions and that motion. All of the notes that I added, that I changed, are from the major scale that the piece comes from. All right. So fourth species counterpoint adds an offset to the counterpoint line. And then fifth species counterpoint is go nuts. You're free to do whatever you want, syncopations and things like that. So what I've done is I've just added a little offset, and this is the last thing we're going to look at, and it's really enough. We've come a long way with this. First of all, I want to make it a little bit faster because it's much more interesting rhythmically. So I just bumped it up by 10 beats a minute. And look what I did. I kept that sinuous line here, and then I added an offset note on beat, well, you think of it as beat 4 of each note, or maybe it's the and. It's hard to say exactly. Sometimes it doubles the note that happened. Just repeating a note is an acceptable thing to do in some counterpoint rules. And then it gives us a stronger rhythm. Listen to this kind of great new version of things. It's a lot more propulsive. We haven't really changed very much. We've used the same guidelines of adding secondary notes. Don't be afraid of counterpoint. It takes a little bit of time, and we just actually went through a series of steps in order to get there. Those steps are the steps that everybody who does this kind of thing has to go through. And you can do it yourself. Write a melody, harmonize it with block chords, spread them out, start chopping them up and go, what's going to work for me? Why not? I hope this has been useful. Like and subscribe. I should have said that at the beginning of the video. I always forget to remind people, this is good to do, subscribe. Well, this is good to do. And if you ding the bell, you'll be notified when I do my videos. I'll see you next time.